Okay, hi everybody. It's good to be back. I'm very excited to chat with you all again today. And what has really been on my heart to talk about and kind of almost makes sense in a way is foundations, especially like the foundation of your reality, because this has ultimately been the most transformative thing in my life and where the majority of my work has resided in terms of like facets of my life. Now, what do I mean by foundation? So, the foundation of all realities, in my opinion, is actually your relationship with yourself, your inner dynamic. And this creates the foundation for everything external in your life. So, this could be your life, like how you live your life, your lifestyle, your business, your career, creative project of yours, your relationship with others. All of that hinges on this inner dynamic, your relationship with yourself. And it is possible that, how a lot of people, let me back up for just a minute, how a lot of people get into this work is for the purpose of getting those external things. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've said this before, I believe, but it doesn't matter. I think whatever you desire it for a reason. And, that's probably something to dive into deeper later down the road, but it kind of becomes like a roadmap for where you're headed and one of the things you've come here to experience. So it's entirely possible that because we're all such powerful designers and co-creators just naturally, that you'll bring in the things that you want to manifest, whether that's a new job, a romantic partner, a lifestyle, a physical form. So like, let's say you want to get in shape or like something related to your health. It could be a whole slew of things, money, whatever. And you'll bring it in, but because you haven't done this foundational work, it's like building those wonderful things, those structures on top of sand. And I think we've all been kids and experienced, or at least witnessed, the building of sandcastles on a beach. And this is sort of like when the waves come in and just dissolve all of that. And as somebody who has definitely had this happen before, I've had things that, sorry, my chair squeaked. As somebody who has brought in things before that I really did want, but didn't yet have the capacity for, I can tell you how heartbreaking it is to have those things dissolve before your very eyes. So to the extent that I can help you, I am so here for it. I wish that somebody had this conversation with me around that age when these things have happened to me. So I hope to be that for you today. So back to like, what is the foundation of all realities? It's your relationship with yourself. So how do you go about building or repairing this foundation? So it's helpful, at least for me, but it might be for you as well, to view my relationship with myself like any other relationship in my life. So when I first began this journey, I would view it as a friend, like a really close, lifelong friend, because ultimately, your relationship with yourself is the only one that you will have until the day that you die. It is the one thing we're all assured in this lifetime, other than, death. So keeping in mind, what do you want that story to look like, the story between you and yourself? If you picture yourself on your deathbed, I know this is a little bit morbid, but it can be a really helpful way to hold yourself accountable to yourself. Like, if you pictured yourself 6 months from now and you got a like terminal illness and you knew you only had a couple months to live, how would you feel about your relationship with yourself throughout your life up until that point? And how would you have wanted it to be different? You have the opportunity to write the greatest love story of all time with yourself. And I think that's incredibly beautiful. So why not make the most of it? The ingredients are already there. You already are worthy of this greatest love story of all time. It's just like a de-rubbling of things on top of that foundation. So I hope to help you with that a little bit today. So some entry questions into this could be like, how are you communicating with yourself? Like, you would kind of evaluate that with your friends. How are you doing it with yourself? Are you really critical of yourself? Is there a lot of negative self-talk? I know I've been there. How are you treating yourself? So of course, what bodies are you putting in your body? Get your mind out of the gutter. What foods are you putting in your body? How are you in terms of like movement, getting your body what it needs? It's going to be different for all of us. So this isn't me trying to shame you. You uniquely know what is right for your very unique makeup. Also, like, how are you treating yourself can apply to what are you tolerating in your life? What are your standards? And this can apply to your job. How does that feel? Does that feel integrity? How is your boss treating you? How is your coworkers treating you? What are you consuming in the way of those relationships, or your romantic partner, your friends, your family? To take it even like one step further, how are you in relationship with all the parts of yourself? If you're like me, you might have like different parts of yourself, like an inner child or like teen self, or just these different layers of programming that will come back up once in a while. How are you in relationship with them? Are you pushing them away? Are you not giving them space to share whatever wisdom they have with you in this moment? Or are you compassionate and welcoming and try to hear them out and give them space to speak? What about your body? How are you in relationship with your body? When you look in the mirror, like, this is kind of twofold because it's both your body and yourself, but how are you speaking to yourself? Can you look in the mirror and look yourself right in the eyes and say, I love you, I'm proud of you, it's such a privilege to hold you up and be on this journey with you? Or are you hiding away from the mirror? And that's not, once again, a judgment call by any means. We're just trying to touch base with where we're at, because having that reality check helps us transform things. How are you in relationship with your past self or selves? How are you in relationship with your future self? I like to think of this, I try to look out for my future Allison as much as I can, make her life easy. Let's say if I want to start my morning with a run, I'll make sure to put my like running shoes and water bottle and stuff by the front door the night before, as a way of looking out for future Allison. Or I also know, this is a part of my unique neuroses, an important thing to me and my well-being, especially like mental, emotional, is having a clean space, and of utmost importance is a clean kitchen. So I make sure to look out for future Allison the night before or whatever by making sure that I already have the dishwasher running before I go to bed. There's no dishes in the sink. The counters are at least reasonably clean. And then that way, future Allison, when she wakes up, I hate talking about myself in third person like this, by the way, but we're gonna do it. That way, when future Allison wakes up, she's in a much better mood and is ready to start the day without all that extra stress. So it's just a way that I love future self in those like little moments, those little decisions. So also, what is your relationship with your emotions? Are you pushing those away? Do you think they're unnecessary? Are you detached from your emotional body? That has been a problem for me in the past. I grew up in a very German household, so emotions weren't really a part of the game. In fact, you know, most of my life, I was a very like logic and reasoning kind of person over emotions, and that really was not good. Can't emphasize that enough. Gotta feel the feels. And really, it has tapped me into such a better life of ease and happiness in the present moment now that I'm not running away from that part of myself. Life gets so much easier once you've integrated your emotions and can work with them on a daily basis. It can be hard, but yeah, I can't say enough good things about that. So also, what is your relationship to your mind? Like in that past example, I was a little too over reliant on it. So where are you on that spectrum? And also, what's right for me isn't necessarily right for you. You have a unique ratio of all of these things. So you're able to tap into, oh, maybe I'm leaning too much on this, or no, this is just the right amount. Just use your discernment. What's your relationship to your spirituality? I think that this is incredibly important, of course. And I'm not talking about religion when I say this. Really, I just view spirituality as your connection to something greater, what gives your life meaning. And for all sorts of people, that can be so many different things. Yes, it might be religion for you. If that is for you, cool. I'm so happy. It could be nature. It could be Reiki or tarot or whatever it is for you. Cool. That's great. Just have a spiritual practice. It's so important. And I understand that there's all sorts of wounding around that too. I'm not trying to be flippant here. As somebody who grew up going to Catholic school and also simultaneously going to a mega church, I can understand how much baggage religions can leave us with. So I'm not trying to be very short here or gloss over that. That is another leg of the journey, is coming into right relationship with what is authentically right for you in terms of spirituality. What's your relationship with your inner knowing? Do you get nudges or just gut feels or whatever, and then you don't listen to them? That's a relationship of sorts too. It's like, there's a saying that I personally like and come back to time and time again, which is, the universe speaks only as loud as you're willing to listen. There's a relationship there. If somebody's talking at you all the time and really has your best interest in heart, because that's what those gut feels and intuition, whatever you want to call it, has for you. But it's talking to you all the time, usually in little, very neutral ways. But if you're kind of giving it the finger regularly, that's maybe not the best way to go. So finding a way to come into right relationship with that and start listening and then acting on it is important. Also, what is your relationship to your sexuality, your sexual energy, which is essentially your creative energy? How is that going? These questions are really great entry points into where the cracks in your foundation, like the areas that need a little extra love and attention, in your existing foundation are. So I would also argue that as a part of this process, this introspection process, it's important to look at places where you're giving away your power. And by this, I mean essentially the places where you are looking for an external foundation at the expense of this internal foundation. And I'm going to give you a bit of an example in my own life. We're going to be a little bit vulnerable here. This is very recent for me. So for a very good chunk of my life, I got very dependent on achieving. It was a way that I sought validation, and it really became a foundation of my identity and how I viewed myself. So how I knew that it was out of integrity, right, was because how I felt about myself was dependent on this external thing, these grades, scholarships, what my resume looked like, even like professors' feedback and stuff. This had been a very long pattern, like decades long pattern. And I got it, it was almost like being addicted in a way. You get like a high from that validation. And it might be something else in your life. It probably is. We all have those things, relationships, jobs, whatever, family. We're putting it on this pedestal and stepping out of sovereignty. So I had to come to grips with this because this last leg of my journey, a good part of it was about really getting solid in my own internal foundation. So that's why it's really on my heart, I think, to be talking to you all about it today. So essentially with school, I was feeling that I knew that my values had changed dramatically. And it all started when I had developed a new layer of mindfulness, which I already have plans to talk about more, but I came into awareness of I was really chasing being the best over being happy in the present moment. Because being happy is a choice made in the present moment. And actually where this came from was this profoundly simple quote from Brother Phappu, who is a monk, or actually I think he has a different role now, so don't quote me on that, but he's out of Plum Village. He's one of the members of the podcast The Way Out Is In, which I would totally recommend. Amazing, amazing podcast. But he just mentioned very casually, very simply, as he has a way of doing, that you have one choice in life. You can either be the best or you can be happy. And boy, did that hit me like a freight train. And it really made me realize how much I was living out of integrity with my values and how much my values had changed. So, of course, school, jobs, basically a lot of that kind of stuff has you focusing on being the best. It cultivates that kind of relationship with your peers, and it's the way that you move up the ladder, right? And all the while you think things like, oh, once I get my degree, I can be happy. Once I'm making this amount of money, I can be happy. But really, as long as you are chasing those goalposts, you will never be happy, because once you arrive at the goalpost, it will have already moved, whether you have moved it or somebody else has moved it. Let's say I have a belief that I will be happy once I'm making $50,000 a year. Let's say in present time, in January, I hit that goal. By then, just the way human nature and desire works, I will have already come up with a new goalpost for myself. So I won't have that moment to be happy and just fill myself with gratitude and joy for knowing that I made it. There's always, as long as your foundation is hooked up to external desires like that, it'll be this perpetual cycle of unfulfillment. So, I'm just looking at my notes here for a second. So yeah, I was put in the place of walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And that really meant restructuring my own internal foundation to be in alignment with this new sentiment. So the fun thing about these internal foundations is it's not just a one and done. It requires a constant reattuning to what's actually going on there, because values can change without you even realizing. It's quite fascinating. So it really felt like my external foundation in terms of validation from school had been ripped away from me, although that's kind of a disempowering statement. I actually believe that I signed up long before coming to this earth to experience that and learn that lesson, regardless of what you believe. You can take that for what you will. So this process felt like a withdrawal of sorts, almost from a drug, where I had all these old patterns and parts of me who felt very safe because of that external foundation. So especially high school me came up a ton, and was needing a lot of love in this process. So I had to really sit with that and meditate, actually, and go to those parts and talk to them, and it really was quite a process. So with that, I would just say, feel for you. What external foundations exist in your life? Do they serve you? I don't know. Your reality could be totally different than mine. Who knows? Maybe an external foundation does serve you. And I'm not saying they never serve you. The caveat in there is that external foundation replacing your internal one? Like, are you stepping out of integrity, out of sovereignty for that external foundation? So do these external foundations in your life, do they align with who you are at your core, your beliefs, your values, your knowing, your internal compass? So let's talk a little bit about what does repairing a foundation look like, or coming into better alignment. Because once again, you are exactly where you're supposed to be, and you are exactly who you, oh, that makes me emotional. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with you. You literally are perfect just the way you are. I know that sounds so trite and cliche. Not trying to be that way. Very genuinely saying this. So all that I can do is really share some tools from my very own tool chest. This sounds so architecture-y all the time. What can I say? So these are ones that I go back to time and time again. So take what resonates, use your discernment. But my guess is that as you and I have been sitting here discussing, some things that you feel might be good next steps have already popped into your brain. And I would say trust that wisdom. There is nothing like intuition. Yes, do research where you have to, but I don't think this has to be this massive production. If you got a hit of like, I need to look out for my future self or whatever it is, like I would start thinking about how to do that. And like the most important thing is set the intention to do it. It's all about choices, baby. So just make that choice. So usually, of course, like guidance from the universe comes one breadcrumb at a time, which is incredibly frustrating. I understand. I am type A and a planner. So doing things one breadcrumb at a time has taken me a lot of surrendering to over the course of my life. But all you have to do is listen to that little nudge, make the choice, set the intention, and take whatever baby step has come to you. So diving right into this, one breadcrumb that I received back when, this was at the very start of my journey, was mirror work. Button moonlights as a pig sometime, if you just heard that beautiful snort. A very, very beautiful pig. So for all genders and identities, there's this massive struggle based on the society that we live in to love our bodies, our physical form. So this is an incredibly transformative practice because this has totally changed the way that I look and feel about my body. And I actually have my mirror work journal right here. So, but before I give you it as an example, I'm going to explain to you a little bit about what this is. So mirror work can be used in a lot of different ways, and it is very powerful, as I've said repeatedly here. So what you're going to do, or, you have free will. Decide what you want to do. But what I did was I would literally stand in front of like a full-length mirror or whatever you have available to you. And this is going to depend on your relationship to yourself. And whatever the reality of that is fine, because you need to honor that. The body only responds to truth, and the body does not lie. So you've got to be honest and realistic in this process. So when I discovered this and I started using it for specifically my relationship to my physical form, I would get as naked as I could in front of that mirror, whatever felt right that day. Although like the goal is to get like completely naked, and have a journal like this one, and you just do bullet points. So I literally started with 6. So it was very simple, and they're just bullet points, so it's not a full paragraph or anything. And I would do this. I would make sure that I had like 10 minutes or so set aside in the morning so that this became a part of my morning practice. And this is how I would start the day, because I do think that's important. You're telling yourself and your body, this part of yourself, that that's the most important thing today. So yeah, you pick things that you can see in the mirror, physical things that you can readily see in the mirror that you love about yourself. And there's absolutely no need to start with like I think like affirmations kind of stuff. If you are a big affirmations person, cool. I'm not trying to take that away from you. But for this particular exercise, honesty is important. So if you don't believe you look like a goddess or a god or whatever, that's going to be a problem. That's not what we're supposed to be writing here. This is like baby steps wherever you're at. Like literally, I'm looking at my first entry and I'm telling you, like, this took some time. Like, this isn't gonna work overnight. You will see leaps and bounds as you commit to this and are consistent about it, but like this whole thing is essentially what I'm describing to you. So this first entry in 2022, three-ish years ago, yeah. Like me being honest with myself was entries like, I love the freckles right above the right side of my lip, because I have like little freckles right here. And I love how fair I am. So it doesn't have to be like, damn, you sexy girl. Or dude, whatever feels right for you. Start where you're at. It's totally fine. No judgment. I mean, it's just you in front of the mirror. Unless you invite an audience. I don't know. Do you? So that would be a first step on the road to repairing a part of your foundation, which is how you feel about your physical form, which is important. And just as a reminder, it takes one, most important, choosing. I remember at the time feeling like this was so woo-woo and it wasn't gonna work, especially because I grew up in a household, we're moving. I grew up in a household where there was a saying that we very much adhered to, which was better living through chemistry. So I really didn't think that this self-help stuff could work. And I don't really want to view this as self-help. This isn't to fix you. It's just to bring yourself more love. And really, once you get to that place of self-love and de-rubble all the shit that's on top of that, because it already exists in you, that's where transformation happens. And it takes very little effort at that point. But yeah, set the intention to start, like and maybe you can combine it with looking out for your future self. Like if this is something that resonates with you, maybe set a journal and pen or pad of paper next to your mirror and just commit to spending 5 minutes on it tomorrow, if that feels right for you. So that's one method at this. And really, I could talk about a lot. I've got a lot of tools in the toolkit now, which I guess is the hope and dream. And they definitely serve me at different points in my life. So the other one that I would say is most important, though, for at least how I've navigated this wild ride, is mindfulness. It seems to be another thing that's really like a massive struggle in our society, where our attention is so contested for, whether through social media, our friends, family, jobs, like everything wants a piece of us. So mindfulness is essentially developing an awareness of what you are aware of, which sounds so intangible. And there's multiple different levels that you can do this on. I started at the level of thought. So I think I mentioned in a previous video, it's okay if you haven't seen it. What really started this journey for me was one simple quote, and it was from a CEO, and he was talking about like how he got successful. And it was he just said, I talk to myself more than I listen to myself. So I developed an awareness of the internal dialogue happening within me, because that is a fun flavor of my reality. You might not have that, that's okay. You can develop mindfulness at really every level, your body, your emotions, your experience, your thoughts, all of it. But in this case, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can change your mindset, I guess. Or at least, I hate using the word change. There's nothing wrong with how your mind functions. It's developing an awareness and injecting like love into it for yourself. So this really is like the fiber of your reality, and a key component of how you start to alter your reality. I'm trying to use the word change. But how you like envelop it in more love is developing a mindfulness practice. So as I said, there's all different ways to develop this. There are even like mindfulness meditations. So I know that YouTube has Insight Timer, whatever. I loved and still love the Waking Up app. There's also many mindfulness groups that you can go to for support, including like Zen centers. So as I mentioned, something that has been a tool in my own toolbox is the Waking Up app. And that was really fantastic. But how I really began this was without all of that. I once again set the intention that I was going to be mindful of how I was talking to myself. And if something came through that felt not in alignment with how I wanted my relationship with myself to be, like it is below my minimum standard to accept critical language from others, including myself. So especially when it isn't from a constructive place. So that would be an example of out of alignment internal dialogue, like, oh, you're damaged goods. We don't accept that. But that also doesn't mean that I'm like, F you, go to hell internally. Because all of this at this point in my time was happening in my thoughts. I knew that I wanted to be a really firm but gentle friend to myself, somebody that would hold myself accountable, like any good friendship, but also was deeply supportive and deeply loving. So getting curious about these thoughts and where they were coming from was huge for me. Like, why did we think that? What's going on here? What can we do to, what need isn't being met? And just doing all that like literally in your thoughts. I know it sounds like a little crazy, but just like the mirror work, this was hugely transformative for me. I even remember, of course, before I get into that, but just like the mirror work, it takes time, and some days are going to be harder than others, let me tell you. But it really does work wonders. And I mean, just that feeling of self-love, there's nothing like it. Now, the first day that I did this, because like, once again, the day before I set the intention, I like discovered this as a tool from a podcast. I think it was the Unf Your Mind podcast. I used to really like that back in 2022. I set the intention that day that the next day I was going to be more aware of what was going on in my mind and the dialogue that was happening. And then the next day I showed up and did it. And, you know, it wasn't perfect, but I remember going to sleep that night and being so elated and so proud and impressed with myself at the very different quality of internal conversation that I was having and how supportive and wonderful it was. I had never experienced that before. I had always felt like a passive audience to my thoughts. I didn't realize that you could enter in to that conversation, almost like breaking the fourth wall, and really develop something supportive and loving within yourself. So at the moment, like, I think that feels like a good place to stop. This is already a pretty long video, but I really hope that this helped and maybe gave you a different perspective on how to love yourself and embracing yourself